Well, thanks everybody for coming to the Energy Exchange mega session. We're going to talk about strategies for energy security in the military services. Today, we have myself, I'm your moderator, Elizabeth Bradford. I'm a Vice President and National Resilience Lead at Michael Baker. We have Colonel Jolie, the Center Commander for Army Corps Huntsville District, and Mr. Phillips, who's the Director of Air Force Office of Energy Assurance. It's an interactive session. We're going to have a survey in a little bit, so if you guys want to get your cell phones out and get the QR code, we will have a poll. All good? Almost ready? I see a few phones up, so I'm just going to give a second. Okay. So a few notes. Just take note of the exits around the room. You came in the exits, so you know where they are. Make sure you silent your mobile devices, including speakers. I silenced mine. I was going to forget. All the presentations and audio recordings of the event will be available at the Attendee Service Center until September 1st, 2025. And at the end, you can download your PDH record also on the Attendee Service Center. We'd like to thank our education sponsors for supporting the events. And we'll start with introductions. So I've already introduced myself, but I started out 30 years ago in the Seabees, so I was in NMCB 4. I now work as the National Energy and Resilience Lead at Michael Baker, and I currently serve as the chair of the Energy Security Community of Interest and on the SAME Board of Direction, and I'm on the technical planning team for Energy Exchange, which is to be determined what that's going to look like this year for those of you that are following that. In my spare time, I enjoy cooking and taking classes to learn how to do that better. Colonel Jolie has been an Army engineer since 1995. He's served on a variety of assignments, including the Joint Staff J3 Commander Mobile District, and he's currently serving as the commander of the Huntsville Center. He's served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He is a graduate of the Virginia Military Institute with a BS in Computer Science from the University of Missouri, and S&T, and has an MS in Engineering Management, and the Georgia Institute of Technology with an MS in Operations Research. Colonel Jolie is a licensed PMP, and most importantly, he's been married for 27 years, and he has 2 children that are studying to become engineers. And Mr. Phillips proudly serves as the director of the Air Force Office of Energy Assurance. The office's mission is to provide reliable and resilient energy to power installations and ensure mission success. He and his team tackle energy challenges head-on with innovative and cost-effective solutions that close energy resilience gaps. Outside of work, you can find Mr. Phillips hiking in the nice weather and cooking delicious Thai cuisine. So, we have our survey that's loading. If you have your phones out again, you'll see that pop up. Just let us know what organization you represent. I do not know. It should pop up. Okay, so we have 19% active duty military, 7% are civilian or at government agencies, 24% small business, 28% medium business, and 24% large business. and no academics or
4,
nonprofits.
5, 6.
Okay, so let's get started. Colonel Jolie.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. So it's always a tough session right after lunch, but also in particular because I know that right now at the same time as this presentation, the LDPers are presenting, I think, the results of their class project. And so I actually had an opportunity to get interviewed for some AI, how they're integrating AI adoption into both the federal workforce and the engineering community practice. And so I thought it was pretty interesting. I more than likely would have attended that session over this one myself. So I understand why we've got a couple vacancies. So in case you're wondering why we do the work that we do, I'd like to acknowledge one particular soldier in the crowd. So Staff Sergeant Ottman and his wife, here to support him, has been selected. He was nominated and selected as the Ishner Soldier. And so if you know the Army Engineer Regiment, that means he is the best non-commissioned officer in the Army Engineer Regiment, which is a very, very high bar. And so if you want to know why you should stay up late on Friday working on that proposal to make sure it's just right so you have an opportunity to get in and deliver an energy project in support of our soldiers, it's for folks like Staff Sergeant Ottman and more importantly for the junior soldiers that he leads, right? They need power at the point of need, and so that's our job here, is to make sure that we deliver that capability. And so that's going to be a theme throughout my presentation, is what is it, we have a new administration in place. They've issued a lot of executive orders. And so many of you from the energy industry are trying to navigate what the new normal looks like. What is it the administration's trying to get after? And so I would tell you, they're trying to get after Staff Sergeant Ottman's requirements in the most cost-efficient, effective manner that assures he's got what he needs to conduct his mission. So if you put that in the back of your mind, kind of ask you that question, will it make Staff Sergeant Ottman more lethal? And if the answer is yes, then that's what we're looking for. So that's really the biggest change, I think, or at least what the administration's asked us to laser focus in on. And so that'll be the theme as we kind of go through this. So obviously, it's not as easy as that, just making him more lethal. There's a lot of rules and policies and strategies that we put into place to get us to a position where we can measurably demonstrate that we are better able to meet our energy requirements. One of those things that were passed by Congress years ago, and many of you probably know this better than I do, the 10 U.S. Code 2920, that dictated that our installations had to be operational 99.9% of the time. They had to have functioning power throughout an entire calendar year by the year 2030. So 99.9%, I actually am a mathematician. That's really hard to achieve, right? So you have to average all those outages and fluctuations in power demand. And in order to make that, you're clearly having to do things that are extraordinary to be able to ensure that mission resilience. Even more challenging, some of our infrastructure is more critical than others. So we have mission critical infrastructure that has a requirement for 99.999%. And so that should really kind of give you an idea of how much redundancy, resilience it is that we're looking for. We can't just have a backup generator and think that we're good. It's going to require a lot more. Part of that strategy is a microgrid on every installation. And so the microgrid itself is just a capability that takes on-site power generation. And I say on-site because, again, the long-term goal is that most installations will have the ability to generate the power that they need for their mission-critical facilities on the installation in some form or fashion to power the microgrid, where that microgrid or that mission-critical infrastructure is required to, again, achieve such a high level. And so many of you are probably proposing or working on some of those microgrids now. The one thing, again, that I would point out that's changed is that source of power generation. Frankly, I think our options have been unleashed. For the engineers and the mathematicians in the room, show me the math problem that identifies what power source makes the most sense, is the most reliable, is the most cost effective, and that should be the one that we execute. There's nothing else that really gets factored in after you run it through this analytical method. And so I think what you'll see on a later slide is some of our approaches to delivering energy requirements has again broadened. It's about resilience, mission assurance. And so everything we're doing is to ensure that, that we operate uninterrupted. And so in order to get after that, we've got a lot of tools in our belt. The reason I'm here speaking today instead of Bob Hughes is the travel ban, frankly, doesn't affect uniformed military, and so that's really the easy, most basic, reason why I'm here. But, I represent the Huntsville Center, and so the Huntsville Center is the executing agent for the Army and meeting all of its energy requirements. General Daly, when he was the Army Material Commander, had declared the Huntsville Center the Army's energy center of expertise. That's because we're the ones that have the know-how and the tools in place to be able to implement third-party finance contracts. And we do that in conjunction with the Department of Energy. And so, there are additional capabilities that we bring to the table that your standard district or other USACE or frankly other service, won't necessarily be able to bring to bear. And so I'm here to kind of get a little bit after some of that actual practical application of energy solutions. And so we'll dive into that a little bit. So again, I mentioned the goal here is energy security. The warfighter has to have energy on demand, and I'll lump in water. The Army has kind of reevaluated the way it approaches its utilities, and it several years ago identified that energy and water are two utilities that when you wake up in the morning, you flip the light switch on or turn your faucet on, there's an expectation that it works, because it's just so integral to our everyday life that we have to really deliver that in an uninterrupted manner. And so we look at that as a combined set of requirements. And so as we build out a framework to achieve this, again, our three pillars that ensure our energy security are reliability, resilience, and efficiency. You'll see above it cybersecurity. So we've had some recent examples of cyber attackers, going in and attacking our. I'm drawing a blank now on the pipeline that was disabled for several days there in Tennessee that disrupted power delivery to the southeast. But that's the most recent and obvious example. But we've got a persistent cybersecurity threat. And so there's a lot of assessments that we do for the installations, and frankly, there's a lot of requirements that we ask our utility providers to meet in order to help us safeguard against the cybersecurity threat that continues to emerge. So under reliability, we've got to be able to measure, obviously, our performance to determine whether we're meeting that reliability pillar. We're measuring things like outage duration, how often they occur throughout the year, the quality of that power, and is it there when we have peak demand requirements to go through. Army metering is one tool of many that we use to get after that, but as we analyze our requirements, have to understand what it is that we've got to work with, understand our gaps, and identify opportunities to fill those gaps. So we'll talk here in a moment on the increased power demands that we've got. We're anticipated by 2030 to achieve a 20% growth in energy demand. That might not sound like a lot, but when you pair that with a parallel effort to reduce energy demand for the activities that we're currently doing, it actually works out to be, in the long run, kind of a growing problem. You'll recently have seen in some of the strategy documents that have come out from Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Driscoll. There's a goal to integrate AI into division and above level headquarters. And so when I hear AI and integrating those capabilities into our command and control networks, immediately comes to mind are the requirements for data centers. Industry obviously is investing heavily on it. We're all becoming more reliant, to include myself, as I learn how to use AI and kind of integrate it into my work on a daily basis. But the Army wants to integrate it into how it command and controls operations as well. And so the power demand requirements are enormous. And so there's a lot of opportunities here to meet this. And so this is where I think some opportunities for industry to come up with innovative ways to help us solve that energy demand increase can kind of come to bear. We're familiar with the tools like enhanced use lease, which affords the opportunity to use some of the land that's resident on our military installations, as a kind of cash credit back towards some other entity to come in and build on that land and deliver a capability that's required by the installation back to it at a cost benefit. We've got those. We have third-party finance contract tools that are in place where industry fronts the cost of new infrastructure, and the energy savings that are generated over the course of decades wind up paying off that infrastructure and in turn providing that return on investment that a financier needs. And so Congress has quickly identified that there is no way they can legislate and appropriate their way out of the infrastructure requirements that our installations have. It's estimated we have a $40 billion backlog in deferred maintenance on our installations. Frankly, as you walk around some of these boiler rooms and central utility plants, it can be a history lesson at a lot of places as to how we used to do this back in the day, because frankly we're still doing it that way. So again, we can't use our precious MILCON budget because it's already too small to meet our mission requirements to get after modernization of utilities while also delivering new facilities. And so third-party finance has been determined to be really kind of the one thing that's going to solve the Department of Defense's problems. And so, again, that's where many of you work, I know, in that space. And we're going to rely on you to really help us assess the requirements of an installation through a detailed fence-to-fence assessment and putting together a plan that we think is future-proof, is able to be executed fast, and again, is going to return investment both to the government user, but then obviously you've got to pay that financier off and make sufficient profit to keep your company going. And so that's where we need your help. Resilience. We've talked about, we can't be reliant on one single feed into an installation. A lot of installations do a detailed analysis of the health of their energy and water portfolio and requirements on the installation. They'll do an installation and energy water plan. And they'll brief that senior mission commander on the state of play for their infrastructure and wind up proposing projects in order to shore up areas that they've got weakness. Again, those projects that come in, very rarely do they come up as a good idea from a DPW staff member, because frankly, they just don't have the expertise and experience, I think, to determine what it is that's possible that's out there. Those come from, again, engagement with industry, where you come in and help them solve their problem, propose a plan, and then and kind of lay it out for them. If you've heard me talk on energy at all, for years I have advocated and pleaded with you to help me communicate to the garrison commander and the DPW, look, you need this, it is sustainable, it's gonna solve your problem, and it's not that difficult. Let me just kind of walk you through it. You've got to do that education piece. We at the Huntsville Center try to help. We put resource efficiency managers out at a lot of the installations. Right now we have 124 REMs that are out all over the globe in various military installations for all the services. But that's one individual in a lot of cases. Very few installations have the luxury of having more than one, but they become the de facto expert. I think industry, you all have an opportunity to help kind of do that coach, teach, and mentoring of a poor garrison commander who spent 24 years in the Army, not realizing that one day they would be asked to be the mayor of an installation and kind of do something wildly different than they've ever been trained for before. So most of them that I've met are all well-meaning, but they're a little gun-shy in signing up for some of these long-term 25-year contracts, or feeling comfortable enough and understanding the technology that's being proposed to say, yep, let's do that. And so I think that's where you all can help break this down in a manner that I think is understandable and assures them that they're going to have that mission assurance that they demand. The efficiency piece here I mentioned early, this is about shrinking the problem. This is about the element of the third-party finance work that you all do that pays itself back, right? We reduce the energy demand, we keep paying the same amount, for that energy. So all those cost savings get reinvested into the infrastructure. And so again, everything that we can do to integrate efficiency is obviously something that we're looking for. When you combine it all, You know, we believe that's disciplined energy management, but that's a process, and it's enduring, and it's complex, and not everybody understands it. Don't have to be an electrical engineer to understand it, but you know, you've got to, particularly when it comes to third-party finance contracting, I feel like it took me 4 months before, and numerous attempts to explain it to me so that I could get up in front of a crowd and try to pitch it to somebody else, you know, but before I understood it well enough to say, okay, I get it now. I think that makes sense. That will solve our problem if we get after it. So you've probably seen this chart before, and you'll see the 3 areas that have been circled here are things that the previous administration had inserted as priorities. You know, the electrification of the entire fleet, demanding carbon-free electricity generation to the maximum extent possible, and the reduction of greenhouse gases. The executive orders have put a pause on those, so those aren't being enforced as previously drafted. And so really this frankly comes down to my opening point. What is most cost-effective, resilient, capable, that's going to meet the requirement for today? That's what we're looking for, and it's got to be quick. If you haven't picked up on the sense of urgency the administration's got, I'll tell you, every day I come in and I get asked to do about a month's worth of work in a day, and then, you know, and I come in the very next day and try to do it again. So it's all about speed, because frankly, the processes and frankly some of the governing rules that we've got to kind of navigate through are not allowing us to compete effectively right now on the world stage. And so we've been asked to go in and look at every regulation and policy that we've got and identify those things that can be streamlined. It's heartening to see that they're diving into the federal acquisition regulation, trying to shrink that down to some, you know, discrete number. Maybe it's 100 pages, and then streamlining some of the other documents. You know, I thought, boy, that's the first thing I'd have done. I'd have thrown 2 of the 3 out and said everybody follows the same set of rules and we're good. But that's why I'm not the president or the SecDef. You know, I think that is a little bit of throw the baby out with the bathwater. But there is a concerted effort really to get to the solution quicker. And so, frankly, we're open for ideas on how we can get, you know, to the answer quicker. And so don't be afraid to identify areas that we think have redundancy or add no value to the process, because you know, we're continuously being asked for opportunities to propose things that should be streamlined to the administration. And since you all navigate it probably a little more closely than I do on a daily basis, you probably got a list of things that you wish went away quickly, only because it doesn't add value to the process. And so I think there is opportunity in the current environment. Again, I mentioned I'm with the center. The U.S. Army Engineering and Support Center out of Huntsville, and so these are some of the specific capabilities that we bring all of our customers. You know, on the planning piece here, we do help detailed master planning, identification long-term of project requirements, ensuring we're all heading in the right direction. I talked about the REMs we put out. We've got the processes to work with our utility providers and ESCOs for either ESPCs or UESC projects, energy savings performance contracts, or utility energy savings contracts, depending on who it is that's performing the work. Commercial utilities program has always been a personal favorite of mine. That program costs about $1 million a year, and they're the ones that go in and help negotiate rate increases, or rather renegotiate attempted rate increases by utility providers to installations. And you know, we kind of get them back down to what mathematically makes sense. And so they're currently operating at about a 43-to-1 return on investment, so they've saved the Army $43 million. Those are some of the planning documents. The deep energy retrofit assessments, those are things that we're doing. Those are just natural byproducts of some of the detailed feasibility studies that you all are performing when you go into a fence-to-fence assessment within an installation to identify potential energy projects. A lot of these things have a recurring requirement, either 4 or 5 years to produce, so that we understand what our requirements are going to be. But a lot of you are doing that as part of that ESPC or UESC kind of project development piece. And so the work that you're doing is extremely valuable in helping us see ourselves and, again, identifying opportunities for us to make improvements. ERSIP, Energy Resilience Conservation Investment Program. Any of you in that space? Curious if there's, you know, if that's going to be something that might be impacted by the administration's new priorities. We don't believe so. Again, the R stands for resilient. This gets after the requirements that we've got. So that central pot of money, again, is very, very popular for installations. It's something they can compete with a good proposal. And frankly, the Army's gotten a lot better at securing their fair share of those projects coming through there, primarily as a result of the Corps of Engineers reorganizing how we get after it. The Navy used to do that in a central manner, and Matt is out gallivanting in another panel. And so they used to they used to get a good share of that, but the Corps of Engineers has now gone to the 3 agencies that wind up doing that. The Louisville district will be the program manager, so when you're looking to seek to compete for URSA projects, you'll see advertisements come out of Louisville district. Huntsville Center becomes the design agent, and so we're the ones that do the 35% design and the technical back end after award. And then the geographic district that has responsibility for an installation will wind up doing the actual construction of that project with you all. And so that's turned out to be a better opportunity for us to get projects that compete favorably there at OSD. The final area that we do work in is on the maintenance piece. I think there was a comment that came out, actually maybe in a different venue that I've got. So if we're putting all this high-speed technology in installations, how can we expect installations to maintain things that they're not likely familiar with or trained on? The way we design ESPCs and UESCs, we're supposed to integrate O&M, during the lifetime of the project. That's supposed to be the standard. A lot of installations attempted to get that waived to reduce the cost, reduce the bill that wind up going back to them. And we've got a terrible success rate of that infrastructure that gets put in by the investor surviving very long at all because, again, it doesn't get maintained properly. Lieutenant General Jones, the IMCOM commander, has really clamped down any requests for kind of deviation from that. And so O&M is getting integrated into that, which is a good thing, I think, long-term for the installations. And obviously, any way that we can do that in an effective, cost-efficient manner is going to allow that project to cash flow and, again, make that installation feel more comfortable that their needs are going to get met without breaking the bank. I always like to show up with a couple things that our business development crew can take away from here. And so I've got just a couple charts here with some acquisition opportunities that are coming up. Our goal is $130 million worth of third-party finance contracts per year. That's been our goal now for several years, which equates to about 8 to 10 projects per year. Frankly, the deferred resignation program has been very successful at the Huntsville Center. I've lost about 14% of my workforce, and actually my energy team, hopefully you didn't steal them away from me. They have been stolen away by some enterprising companies out there. And so we're frankly starting to hit some bandwidth issues on the energy front, particularly as we're waiting for the hiring freeze to expire. And so I say that really to just urge you to help us help you. We don't have a whole lot of extra time and talent that can sit down and answer a lot of RFIs or go through proposals that really don't meet all the requirements up front. We really need you to help us as well on the installations, getting in and doing that detailed assessment, because the installation staffs have been downsized as well as a result of DRP. And so this is an opportunity where industry can help. I think they can help fill in that void that we've experienced with the loss of the government civilians. And so I know that I sure wouldn't turn away help. So if you come in really with the spirit of solving the problem, I think that's going to be beneficial for a lot here in the near future. I think I've got 2 more slides here. On the utility monitoring control system front, these are anticipated for the rest of this fiscal year. You'll see a lot kind of going out right now. This is a program that super, super active, and it grows, I feel like, by $100 million every year. And so, again, we've got to operate our infrastructure more efficiently, and so you have to have controllers that do that. Here, this says LRD, but this is really the URSA program coming out of Louisville District. So you'll see a lot of opportunities coming through. Again, most tied to that, meeting that microgrid requirement that's out. And again, these are coming up here 3rd and 4th quarter of this fiscal year. So hopefully you're aware of these projects and are already putting together your proposals. And so I'll just leave you with my key points of contact. And we're going to take questions, I think, after both presenters go. And so you've got a chance here to think about it. But let me see if this chart. So there might be a couple people on this list that have opted into DRP that haven't necessarily started administrative leave yet. But I'll tell you, Arthur Martin, the people at the top of the chart, actually minus Bill Craven, are pretty stable. Feel free to email all of us on the list, and we'll get you to the right person. And after the hiring freeze is lifted, if you're looking for a job in Huntsville, I urge you to apply to some vacancies that I would love to fill. So with that, I'll turn it over. Thanks very much. Let's see if I can get you set up here. There you go, Kurt.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, Kirk Phillips, and if you use that contact, it'll actually go to our website. There's a place for contact there. You can send our team a question. I also would recommend that you sign up to our mailing list. You do not hear about who won an award and whose birthday it is and all that kind of stuff. We only post when we have an opportunity. Since we use, as Colonel Julie said, all the authorities under us, and we use lots of different execution agents, finding where we're doing works and can be challenging. But if you sign up to that webpage, you'll know, because we'll tell you you're there. All right? Everybody's had a chance. So buckle your seatbelts. I'm going to try to go through a lot. I've got a few purposes here. One, I want you to understand what matters to the Air Force. Second, I want you to see kind of what general areas that we are working on and doing, and we have opportunities for small businesses, and we have opportunities for large businesses, and also for technology companies and new innovative things. And then the last thing is to really just hone in on some of the things that we're doing to make the contracting process better, faster, and get after our needs in a way that we haven't done in the past. So we did not have to adjust with the new administration, really, because all the goals that the other administration had, the things that Colonel Julie circled, we called that informed. We did not use any of it to make our decision, because we have so much to get done for resilience, for mission, and because so many of the things that we needed to do helped in those goal areas, we didn't need to push on those goal areas. And in fact, things like the electric vehicles, we chose to not buy vehicles. We chose to actually buy distribution to be ready for vehicles. And so we actually just improved our distribution systems. We didn't purchase any vehicles in the Air Force. So all that money was actually used for resilience until it went away recently. So overall, just some of the numbers. We used a lot of our resources to get after what we need to do. And you can see we've got huge numbers of square footage. All of that's done inefficiently. We've got a huge amount of energy usage, which we can do more efficiently. We have the ability to transfer our land in a way that puts in resilient solutions. So what are the policies? So the policies that drive us is we're doing a lot in Europe right now because we have to get off of Russian energy, and we have some deadlines. And the recent NDAA actually backed it up by 2 years. So it was 29, now it's 27. The 99.9% by 2030 for all installations, but we also have 4 nines and 6 nines for our priority missions at the same time, and 7 days of storage unless that mission can fly away or be operated somewhere else. And then there have actually been 9 executive orders so far that are energy specific, and there are 4 more coming out that we've been able to see some early copies of. So there's a huge amount of push in energy. And it really comes down to this. The nation needs more power. The federal government needs more power. The Air Force needs more power. We also need to make sure that that power is resilient. You know, the grid has some instabilities. The way we're generating power today is generating some instabilities. So it's really to get that stable power and to do it very quickly. All right. So we're mission focused. Like I said, we don't change that. We combine all the things you just heard about all those authorities in order to get after. We actually put very little of our own direct dollars in because there is so much money in power. If we can access the dollars that are in power, we can do most of what we need to do. There are places that can't be done. For instance, a remote site in Hawaii, which has no community near it, we are not going to be able to do a community-based solution where we all help to pay for that power, right? That's going to be something we have to invest in. But you think about an Air Force base that's in a county, a tri-county area that has needs. and we're able to find partners. So in that, we really try to go that utility scale. We try to go larger. We're not looking at, we will buy the X that solves our Y problem. We say, we've got a Y problem. You, the community, you, the power company, you, the ESCO, our inefficiencies. How can we put all that together to end up delivering a solution that matches everybody's needs? And so we're just part of the partnership, part of the customers. You'll also see that and that's those partnerships there. And then you'll also see that we've been piloting a lot of innovative technologies and ways to get after that technology in my presentation here. Always comes down to resilience. We are looking for mission resilience. And so that is the core of what we're doing. So the driving on our innovation, a couple more executive orders here. Basically, one of those is talking about data centers. We actually had a data center emphasis in our office, actually starting in the spring of 24. And so the push now to do more on the data centers is great. We're ready. We have actually looked at the entire U.S. We've looked at where the high-speed tech corridors are. We've looked at where the power is. We've looked at where there's limits to the power. We've looked at the water availability because these things use huge amounts of water as well. And we looked at our land area and our needs, and we've all matched that up. We already have all of our bases identified. We're already working with the utilities where the utilities are insufficient to meet the needs, and that includes like gas companies. And so we are going to be moving out. We actually had an RFI at DM, which we pulled back because the new administration wants to try to do a central OSD effort. They promised something in 2 weeks. It's now been 2 months. And so I hope that we will either get them to move, or the Air Force will go ahead and turn our RFI back on and get to moving, because in this case, speed is the name of the game. This is the speed of business. First, companies to get to the power they need to do the AI, they control the future economy. And so that's their speed, and that's the speed that we need to meet. We're talking about putting huge amounts of power on our installations and hosting those data center sites as well. The second one is geothermal. So resilient energy, geothermal is great. It's great baseload power. We've been working for the last few years making sure that we can do geothermal where geothermal is not easy, right? We've been working at doing enhanced and advanced geothermal. We have identified companies, and we're working on installations to do that. We have 4 installations that have geothermal power, not heating, that is going in right now. We've recently selected 12 additional companies, geothermal power companies. You can go find those selected ones out on the web. We had a press release. We are now matching those companies up to our installations where geothermal power is somewhat easier, as well as the ones that now that we have learned a lot about where it's hard, where we're going to be able to do some of the enhanced geothermal. And so we believe we'll be able to match most of those companies up to an installation. We'll see what their bids are and how they come. But we used something called trade wins. So they are in a selected bucket, and we can select them sole source at this point, and they stay in that bucket forever. So we can continue to go to those companies. We now have a total of 15 separate geothermal power companies that are under contract for long term. We can pull them out sole source at any time to deliver geothermal power. So if you go find them, you work with them, there's a huge amount of subcontracts and work that needs to be done in the geothermal industry. And we plan to use that as our prime technology wherever we can put it in. Next thing is hydrogen storage. Long duration energy storage is incredibly hard. And when we talk about storage, and you maybe put in diesel and you're storing that diesel only is going to last about a year before it sours and gets too old to really operate. And traditional rice engines, they don't handle more than a few hours or a day or so, and that doesn't really get us to that 7 days. So we've got an emphasis on hydrogen as storage. You can see on the slide there's lots of ways to store hydrogen. One of the ways, though, is as a metal hydride. So that's in its solid form. So it attaches to a metal, and then it's stable, and it actually sits at STP. It also does not degrade over time. So you make effectively a hydrogen battery, and you set it there. It's going to sit there for the next 100 years and be ready to operate. And so there's a breakthrough technology that has come about, and we're looking at having those be backup systems for our bases instead of using the diesel generators. There'll be a hydrogen solution across. So I think that's really exciting. We have other efforts in hydrogen, but that's probably the most exciting one. So no longer rice engines. Think about linear generators and heat and I want to say fuel exchangers, but I'm saying the wrong word. Thank you. Yes. All right. So long duration energy storage elsewhere, not the hydrogen, not for we're talking about hydrogen. There's a program we've partnered with the Department of Energy. These are things like using supercritical CO2, having like a giant tennis court-sized room of CO2 that just gets pumped, pressurized, placed into storage tanks, and then at nighttime, when energy is abundant, maybe from solar or wind, and then that supercritical CO2 would come back over a turbine and actually generate power at night. So a lot of really innovative things for long duration energy storage. We are looking forward to moving forward on a number of those these years. Lots of new technologies. A lot of those use the one I just mentioned use all standardized pumps that are just commercial off the shelf. So for the small companies that have pumps and turbines, it's a great opportunity for you all. Next thing is geologic hydrogen. You may not know it, but if you have olivite in the ground and it's deep enough and there's water near it and it's hot enough, hydrogen naturally gets produced and that just bubbles up. And if it hits a confining layer, then you get basically a hydrogen lake, and then you can just tap in the hydrogen lake and you say, oh my God, why don't we have hydrogen wells everywhere in America? And that's because where that mineral is not where oil and gas is. And so when you go for oil and gas, you don't hit it. And that's where we've been digging our wells. And so we have partnered with USGS and the Department of Energy, and the Air Force is leading the way in identifying geologic hydrogen under our installations. 14 of our installations fall into an area that has a 75% chance or greater for tapping into geologic hydrogen. So if we can get a few dollars, we're going to start prospecting, and then we're going to be putting in some wells, and we'll be able to bring that hydrogen up. If we can just get to 1% of the hydrogen that's produced naturally in the earth at all times, it would power the entire world for 100 years. 1%, 100 years, and that's what's being generated continuously all the time. So that's a great resource that we need to get after. All of these, by the way, match. I can match every one of these initiatives to an executive order in terms of getting after new energy in a better way, faster. We also, if you've ever tried to work with the Air Force and put rooftop solar or rooftop energy solution, you probably found that we're the hardest customer in the world to work for. In fact, we've made it almost impossible to do. We have a major initiative where we are combining rooftop power solutions with our master contract for roofing. So we are asking to buy it all at one time. So that way we don't have to worry about some of the problems about the warranties being mismatched and about who's going to manage the power, et cetera. So all that's going to be combined. So that's going to be coming out soon on our new roofing master contract. So it's going to be a lot easier. If you do roofing and you don't have a power partner, you need a power partner. If you're power and you don't have a roofing partner, you need a roofing partner. There's going to be any roof in the Air Force that's sufficient size to handle a solution. We're also looking at wind solutions for over-the-eave solutions. There's going to be an opportunity out there. It'll be off the pick list for the base to select. All right, so some now exciting updates beyond just technology, and that is that we're looking at how to get after and do business in a better way. So I'm going to talk to you about 3 of those ways that we're doing it. One is energy as a service. So if you understand utility privatization, imagine utility privatization says, hey, this is what we want, and we're probably going to want that for the next 50 years with no significant changes. Who has ever bought something and they thought they'd be happy with it for 50 years? Nobody, right? That just is not a model that really works. Nobody's happy at the end of the day. Energy as a service says, hey, we want a requirement. We want this mission to have these lines. We need to have storage. We need to have a grid that achieves these kinds of goals. And then we say we'll pay a monthly fee to achieve that. And that way, as we change missions, as we move things around, as we build a new building, we're able to point back to the same contract and say, see, that building holds that kind of mission, so that's what it needs to support. We know what the price per building, the price per capability is. We understand what we're going to be buying. We add that to that monthly cost, and we still get what we need. Likewise, we get rid of a building, we move a mission out. You no longer have to provide that kind of a capability. You don't get as much on your monthly fee. That's energy as a service that's being done at Hanscom Air Force Base as a pilot. We hope to roll that out. I call it UP done better, and that's what, when When somebody says, hey, we ought to do UP, I say, that's the one we want. All right, the next one is Finance First. This says it's going to come out in summer. Unfortunately, there was a mark against our budget, and they took our dollars, and so DIU has put us on a back burner till we get dollars back, so it will no longer be awarded in summer. But we have already selected the companies. We just can't award because we can't give them their production contract. But Finance First says, hey, we are going to give you our scoring at the installation for resilience, and we're going to tell you to come back with your best idea to make our score the highest and at the best cost, maybe a zero cost, because we want you to get your own financing and you work out where is the money and energy to do that. And so that Finance First initiative is going to give up to 3 companies a project, and it might be a base, it might be a whole MAGCOM. We go and look at the winner is the one that gives the best solutions, meaning closing the most gaps with a fully funded program. The last one, and this is the one that no matter who you are in here, you should write this down. It's called DECO, Defense Energy Consortium. So we're creating a new consortium. 3 years in a row, the Congress has said, DOD, do an energy consortium. 3 years in a row, they got crickets. And so the Air Force has decided we're going to do it. The Defense Energy Consortium puts the money. It's going to have a SEC-managed fund that can go in there from sovereign wealth funds. Money can be in there from venture capitalists. Money can be in there from large ESCOs or large energy companies or from utility capital investment funds in order to have funds available. We will present a problem. The DECO, the consortium, will pop out their answer, and it will be a fully funded answer. And all we have to do for all the down selects is say, yeah, we want that answer, or if we get more than one, pick the answer we want. Here's the benefit to different folks. One, if you're a small company and you need some investor dollars to help make your thing go bigger, better, they're going to be in there. If you're a large company and you're scrambling to find the technology company you want to partner with, and that partner company is trying to partner with the right guy, but not too many, and they got exclusive agreements, you don't have to have any of those agreements. If the consortium puts together a solution, then that solution can come to us. So let's say, go back to those hydrogen batteries. That company, I wouldn't want them partnering with a company because that limits my requirements. I'd like that small company that has that innovative technology to be one that comes across in every solution that it works. And then they didn't have to limit who they would get money from, and I don't have to worry about that they weren't able to be placed into a good solution for me. So that's going to be coming out. The RFP, which establishes the consortium, will be coming out hopefully before the end of the year. And then once that's established, you'll be able to join as a member company. And as a member company, you'll be able to bid effectively on any of the solutions that we ask it to come out and bid on. So that's just kind of a quick summary of these the main contracting operations that we're doing. I've just kind of listed them here. And we actually, today, I was selecting the multi-fuel generator. We're looking at a new way to do power generation center installations. And so I've selected the companies that will be in, and that will be similar. We're doing that through that trade winds opportunity. That's like DIU in terms of, but it's a rapid OTA type solution. And once those companies are in that list, they stay in that list forever, and I can sole source go to them. So this is my main folks. You can take a picture of this. That's that same link I gave you earlier. I'm very excited about what Air Force is doing. Everybody in this room, that 30% about basically who we are. I see really great work for you to work with us. I will tell you also that we consolidated energy in the Air Force. So I identify the gaps, develop the solutions, construct the solution, and manage it for long-term M&V. So it's all in my office. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to be successful. I can't point to anybody else. So thank you for your time today.
Great. Thank you both. We're going to do the Q&A. Sorry. Start back here. So when you guys, if you have a question, just come to the mic, state your name, your company or your organization, and ask your question. I'll start with one so we can start bringing people to the front. Colonel Jolie, tariffs and their impacts on projects is still uncertain. So can you share if DoD has analyzed potential impacts and what steps it's currently taking to mitigate potential costs or impacts to projects?
So we've taken a specific look at the center with all of our ongoing work. And so the good news is to date, we have not had any cost increases for any of our current projects that are underway as a result of tariffs. You know, if we watch the news from day to day, the status of the tariffs obviously continues to change quickly. So, you know, we're being very diligent in how we assess, you know, what those impacts are going to be. Bottom line is, Buy American Act is still a requirement for all of our projects. So those materials, you know, should be sourced to the maximum extent possible, you know, within the U.S. But if there is an impact from a tariff, we are prepared to do a -3 analysis out of the FAR to take vendor documented increases of materials as a result of tariffs. So from the vendor, not the prime, you know, with some, you know, rolled up cost increase associated to tariffs. But we are willing to go through and look again at that documentation at that level of detail. So it's on the table, no blanket get out of jail free card.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks. Jack Shriver with Power Engineers, which is now part of WSP. One thing that was noticeably absent from the presentations was any discussion of nuclear, and it seems like that's really something that the current administration is going after, as well as I know the services have been pursuing. So I was wondering if there's any updates on where you both stand on nuclear power plants.
Yeah, we have a significant update on nuclear. So Eielson Air Force Base is our pathfinder. With it, we're going to be able to connect to commercial power, which is important because you don't really get the resiliency until you can have commercial power, and that as an opportunity for backup. Our Secretariat put out a policy letter that directed all the installations on what process they would have to put nuclear power at their installation. And so our installations are doing a combination of volunteering, and we're identifying which ones ought to have nuclear power, and doing that in a very deliberate process. There are executive orders coming out on it that have very strong DoD goals. And so we are lining ourselves up to be ready to deliver on those executive orders. And then finally, we've been partnering with the commercial utilities. So one of the best ways we think to do nuclear power is where we partner with the city, the county, or like the Tri-County area, depending on where we are and what the base size is, and host the nuclear power plant that's designed for the whole community on our installation. And then we get the first right to that power, but ultimately by that power mix. And so my number one technology was geothermal. The total number of bases that are going to be able to have geothermal after all the advanced technologies come to fruition is going to probably be more in the 25% range. And the remaining bases are open candidates for nuclear power.
The only other thing I would add is that we've been encouraged to pursue other transactional authority acquisition for these pilot programs. And so where USACE has been very hesitant, or at least centralized their OTA responsibilities down to ERDIC, Engineer Research and Development Center, there may be an opportunity for additional organizations within USACE to pursue OTA, again, in compliance with the executive orders.
Great, thank you. We have a question over here.
Sir, you hit the question about the data center AI executive order from the Biden administration that actually carried over for the Air Force. Sebastian, same question to you. Any visibility on what the Army's doing for their identification of potential locations for on-base data centers? Sebastian, that was for you. Anything on the Army side?
The Army submitted a list. They actually submitted a fairly large list. I think the list was more at, is there available land on that installation? It didn't try to match up as much to the whole ecosystem. And it's going to be part of that centralized OSD program.
Which we don't know when that's coming out.
It was, yes, 2 months ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
DOE's is already out, so just.
Yep.
You think you'll actually move ahead without DOD in the Air Force, or was that?
DOE?
No, would the Air Force move ahead with its own list, RFI?
Yeah, I don't want to get fired. So
That's good.
yeah, right now the policymakers have said we will wait for DOD, but just this last week I've been saying, are we still going to wait? And they said maybe not. So they're thinking about it.
You see EULs as being a potential pathway to those on installation data centers?
Absolutely, yeah. It's for us, we call it usually an energy assurance lease, but it might also be an EUL. We're looking at the improved commercial value from these as well, right? We're not looking at a land lease. So if you've thought of a lease as a rent payment for the land, that's not this. This is more for us like a partnership. We know you're going to make trillions of dollars off of this infrastructure that you're going to put in. We're going to expect a portion of that so that your profits are reasonable and our in-kind consideration is substantial.
Thanks.
We have time for one more question, but I wanted to mention that Mr. Phillips has to leave immediately after, so just let him get away, please. He has a meeting, so go ahead.
Yes, my name is Theron Colbert. I'm actually a retired Navy Civil Engineer Corps officer and commander. And I had a question for Mr. Phillips. I know that we're obviously trying to enhance our presence, our defense posture in the Pacific. So I was kind of wondering what's the Air Force stance as far as maybe using some of these, diverse, procurement methods for energy security, such as geothermal, in such a place as the Pacific Rim, where there are quite obviously a lot of geothermal sources there to increase our Air Force and maybe even Navy defense presence, and then have the reliability of geothermal in some place like the Pacific Rim, Vanuatu, or maybe in the Caribbean, Dominica, or maybe even like East Africa.
Yeah, appreciate that. So the diverse sources, absolutely, for the Pacific. For our main operating bases, we actually just did $1.3 billion worth of improvements, which were mixtures of solar, wind, natural gas, black start projects, and some diesel engines that have allowed those bases to have an islanding capability. So we've already invested in that. Our island hopping strategy is looking at solutions. There's nuclear being considered in those, but as well as some of our better storage. And then for the geothermal, we've got some geothermal efforts that are for overseas. There's significant challenges, though, because the way most of those lands have been given for DoD usage does not give us access to the mineral rights, and geothermal is really accessing those mineral rights. So there's really a State Department play that has to help to get after that challenge. Not Pacific, but Germany has already come through for us, and so we can access Germany's heat under our installations, and so we actually have at least one effort that's moving forward in Germany.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank everyone, thank the speakers for your presentations and the Q&A. Colonel Jolie has said he'll stick around to answer any questions after the session. Just if you want to do your survey, you need to get this QR code to get your credits after the session, I think, or that maybe, I might be mixing that up. And then, of course, is the contact information. So thank you, and we will wrap up, and you can dodge.
Okay, great, thanks. I got to get unwired anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you all.